Hey everyone, it's Lauren. I wanted to give you guys a few more hands-on techniques on how to set your boundaries. So these are additional videos that go along with my Basic Intuitive Skills Part 1 video course. So if you haven't checked out that video course, definitely do so that you can kind of understand how these fit into the lessons that we're going through. So it's really important that we know how to set our boundaries because anytime we do intuitive work, we want to make sure that wherever our psychic information is coming from a high vibe source. So I'm going to give you 4 tools today that you can go out and buy to help you actually set your boundaries. So the first one being crystals. Now I don't personally have too many crystals that help me ground. I did have one, but I lost it. How ironic is that? And so you can definitely look up crystals online, look for crystals that help you ground or help set boundaries, or help like maintain boundaries of sorts. Honestly, I feel like you kind of have to feel out the crystals yourself, to really determine what works for you. Honestly, black tourmaline is huge for me. Even though it's used to repel negative energy, but I also feel like it really helps me set my boundaries because, when I'm about to do a reading for someone, I really want to make sure that, I'm not talking to somebody who has bad intentions. I want to make sure that I'm talking to that person's guides, or somebody for their highest and best good. And so having this around me in readings makes me feel a lot more safe and protected. And I feel like it's a very physical symbol of, hey, I'm only talking to people that can be around this stone. And the only people that can be around this stone have to be really high vibe. So definitely try out some crystals, see what works for you. Again, this is black tourmaline. This is a huge chunk of black tourmaline also. It's kind of cool. But you can get it smaller also. So figure out what rocks work for you, whether it be grounding or getting rid of negative energy, whatever feels best to you to get into that grounding state. Maybe that's just a stone that has to do purely with intuition and opening up that intuitive muscle. But make sure that, when we're talking about setting boundaries, that it has to do with protecting you and making sure that your intentions are clear before you turn on your psychic ability, because that's what boundaries are all about, is just making sure that you're protected before you open up your psychic ability. The other thing that I would say about crystals too is that when you're done, when you're turning off your psychic ability, you can meditate with crystals. You can use them as a way to come back to your boundaries. So it doesn't just have to be before you turn on your psychic ability. You can also use them after. That kind of applies to all of these videos. Boundary setting happens before and after you do any intuitive work. So maybe you decide you set your boundaries with a crystal and then you reset them with a verbal intention, whatever works for you. So the second tool that I would use is called setting your bubble. And I absolutely love this one. Besides using verbal intentions, that's my biggest way of how I set my boundaries. And this is so simple. This is just sitting down, imagining that there's a bubble around you. So, close your eyes, even do it right now. Close your eyes, imagine that there's a huge bubble around you. And, the more you can sit and meditate with this bubble, the stronger that boundary will get. So feel the texture of the bubble. Is it strong? Is it elastic? What color is it? What does it look like? What's the texture? The more you can kind of really feel this bubble and really feel like it exists, the stronger it is. And you can kind of set the intention that with this bubble, every time you set it, the only thing that can come through this bubble is my highest and best good. And you can decide how permeable that bubble is. Do you let in psychic information that's for your highest and best good? Do you let in no psychic information when this bubble is up? Totally up to you. The great thing about this bubble is you can set it like 3 times a day. You can even set a reminder on your phone. And this will kind of just keep you in check and make sure that your boundaries are constantly set. And sometimes you'll realize that, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that I have a bubble. And you realize that your bubble is huge and you've been letting everybody in. Or, maybe you realize it's the opposite and your bubble gets smaller and tighter, and it's harder for you to receive psychic information because you're keeping yourself so tight and you won't let anything in. So again, all of these exercises are just kind of helping you become more aware of your boundaries. And the more you practice with your boundaries, the more you feel them, the more you distinguish between when they're on and off, the easier it becomes to set them and unset them and just kind of work with them in general. So I talked a little bit about essential oils in removing blocks. You can find essential oils that are helpful in meditating or helpful for like clearing and stuff. And they can work the same way for boundaries. So maybe you find certain essential oils that help you set those boundaries, that help you ground more, that help you clear energy out of the room better. It's really about what works for you. And especially with essential oils, I feel like it's a more test and figure out what you like, because different smells are different to people. So this one specifically is called Meditation, and it's from, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Orakakia, I don't know. And it has a blend of essential oils, but the whole purpose of this is to kind of get you into a meditative state. And I find that helps with setting my boundaries. You might not be a huge fan of essential oils, but give it a shot. You might find that smelling something right before you decide to set your boundaries really helps set them and make them stronger. Now, the final tool that I would give for setting your boundaries, I also talked about this in the removing blocks, is singing bowls. Now, I found that some people, they like to kind of like hit a chime or make a certain noise, or do some sort of sound related thing to help set their boundaries. Now, singing bowls or, using some sort of chime is great because you're setting your intention in a very auditory sort of way. And I feel like all of these kind of ways to remove blocks and ways to set boundaries are, specific to like how you actually learn your psychic ability, which is the 6 clairs, which we'll get into in part 2. But, we all learn, some of us auditory things work better. Some of us visual things work better. Saying things out loud helps some of us. Smudging and doing a lot more physical stuff can help us set boundaries better. So it's really just kind of figuring out what works best for you. Now, if you really like sound, I know one woman who rang a bell each time before she did a reading, and that was kind of just her way of saying, this is reading time, this is intuitive time, and I'm opening up the space. And then I think she rung like a different bell or like a different tone when the reading was over. And it was just a very auditory way for her to really feel that energy in the space, for her to kind of disconnect, set her boundaries before, disconnect at the end. So definitely give those a try. If you're not sure what you like, I would say try all of these. When I went to the Aspen program, my teacher was great. She brought all of these things in, and I was able to really feel what worked for me and what didn't. Now, the singing bowl thing, I would say it is so much more impactful if it's physically there in front of you. I know there's YouTube videos with them, but when it really works and when it really feels powerful and cleansing is when it vibrates the room and it like vibrates the chair and you can feel it inside of you. That's very powerful, and it's very, very great at being able to set your boundaries because it's a very physical, like, okay, I'm awake, I'm here, let's set these boundaries. Awesome, guys. I hope you enjoyed these techniques. I have some other videos on how to set your boundaries as well as removing blocks, and some precursor homework to Basic Intuitive Skills Part 2. So definitely check out all these additional videos if you've gone through the full course. I definitely want you guys to get as much practice as you can.